Morning, Joshua.
Morning, sir. How are we doing?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Podcast 3.
Podcast 3. What are we moaning about today?
Well, let's not do too much of a moan. Maybe there'll be a little moan, but why don't we give all 3 people that are going to listen to this some practical sales advice? So what I thought we could discuss is the biggest difference between scripting and psychology, and typically why scripting doesn't work, although there's a caveat to that. And then we can talk a little bit about how to utilize psychology to your advantage in a sales process and things like that. Reckon?
Sounds good. I'm down. Let's do it.
Cool.
Where do we want to start?
We'll start with why using a script is and isn't a good idea.
Okay. So my 2 pennies. If you are brand new to sales or you're very inexperienced, now caveat to that, I'll come back to it. If you're new and inexperienced, having a script is going to be your crutch that gets you through the conversation. Because going in hoping and praying just to try and wing it is probably not going to deliver fantastic results. So asking the right questions. Well, because, I could, go and look at a car engine and read a manual about, this is, a carburetor, this isn't a spark plug. Doesn't make me a mechanic, doesn't give me a deep level understanding of how to diagnose the root cause of a poorly performing engine. Right? So a script is a crutch that I can lean on. Essentially, not to bullshit my way through the conversation, but until I have a much deeper level of understanding, until I've studied mechanics and can diagnose it, until I've studied sales and biopsychology and understand why I'm asking the questions, what I'm trying to actually pull out of it, then it is my crutch.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Is a bad thing to have?
Well, not necessarily. Like I say, if you're new to it, and, we've both done it where we've sat and listened to other people's sales calls and thought, that was an amazing question. I've never asked that question. I'm adding that into my bank.
Yep.
So you build your own sort of internal script, essentially. But the point of the script is to pull out what you want to know from your prospect, right? How to guide them through the conversation. The problem as we see it when you are only reliant on a script is no sales conversation is ever going to follow a script 100% A to Z, start to finish. So if you are reliant on the script and someone goes off script, what happens? Well,
shit pants.
Most closers go, where do I go from here? So having it there as a crutch, as a guide, yes, fantastic. Having a framework and a deeper level psychological understanding of why you're asking the questions, you can sell anything. You can walk into any conversation and never get lost.
Yeah.
Yeah? What's your take on scripts?
I agree with you 100%. I think when you're brand new, you need a script because you need to understand what questions you need to be asking at what stage, but to your point, and why you're asking those questions. It's not just knowing the question. You've got to understand the reason behind the question. Why am I asking this? What is the answer that I'm looking to get? What is the emotion I'm looking to trigger or avoid, whichever it may be. So that's one thing. I think for me, when you're brand new, use a script because it gives you a framework. But the way I teach people is you need to come away from that script as fast as possible. And I don't mean forget it. What I mean is just memorize the bank of the types of questions you need to be asking in order to elicit the correct answers and emotions for the person that you're speaking to. So once you come away from it and you just have it in your mind as a framework, you're able to be much more conversationally flexible which, like you said, sometimes people get hit with a question and they just, go to bits because, oh, well, that's not on the script, right? Whereas if you just utilize it as a framework, you can come off the framework. You can, have a dialogue about that question that they've asked and then just as easily ping straight back in. And I had a conversation with a business owner a few days ago. And I said, one of the things we'll probably need to do is we'll need to review your script and your pitch and just make sure that's tightened up. No, we don't need to do that. I said, okay, why do you say that? And he said, well, because we've refined that script over years and years, and it's really good. I said, okay, fair dues. Is everybody on your team selling at exactly the same rate of close? Like, what's your top guy doing? And he said, oh, he crushes. He's closing about 38-40%. I was like, all right, pretty good. What's your worst person do? He was like, yeah, he's really underperforming, about 15%. And I said, are they both using the same script? He said, yeah. I said, then it's nothing to do with the script. It's to do with the delivery of that. Because if you take that script and you give it to somebody with social anxiety, it doesn't matter how good the script is, doesn't matter what the words on the paper say. If you don't deliver those words correctly, they're going to fall on deaf ears. It's not going to mean anything. So now I'm expecting this script to be pretty decent. Do you know what I mean? He's a good business owner. He's done a lot of different programs from a lot of decent, what I would consider decent sales trainers. So I'm imagining it's pretty good. But can we add a little bit here and there? Can we refine it? For sure? And then the biggest thing is going to be obviously working with the team to figure out, why is this person selling at 15% and this person's selling at 40%? Because clearly there is a disconnect in there somewhere. And I can almost 100% guarantee it won't be the words on the page. It's going to be the utilization of those words and phrases, how they're landing. And that's all to do with tonality, conviction, everything we talk about all the time.
Yeah. But to add to that, if the top rep was at 38-40%, the bottom is at somewhere between 10 to 15, we, again, have both seen it before, where even adding in a couple of questions to that script could be the difference between that 10 to 15er being at 20 to 25 and that 38 to 40 being at 50.
Yeah.
I.e. having something around doubt, pre-handling objections. So building that script, whether that's on paper, whether it's internal, adding into your long-term framework, there is still a lot that can be done, right?
Yeah, I agree. It for me, the biggest difference is because the reality is this: I've seen really good scripts. Like, I've read through scripts and gone, actually, that's freaking good. Do you know what I mean? And the sales team struggle to close a bean. And I've seen people, literally no sales script. They're just all doing their own thing, pinging off in all directions. But the team is crushing it because everybody on that team is selling with such a high level of conviction. They really believe in the offer. They are in an internal Slack channel where the client's wins are being posted in their daily. So the sales team is constantly being reminded, holy shit, we're changing lives here. Do you know what I mean? So that level of conviction is always more important to me than a script. Now, if you can combine the two, have a good script / framework and have a sales team that sells with a super high level of conviction, game over.
Yeah. If we could find a way. So one of the big problems that I have with scripts is it's not that they are on paper. It's the fact that, probably 90% of what is in that script is going to be really good. The problem is you might need something that's on page 5 and you are on page 1 at that particular point in the conversation. Now, if you have to refer to page 5 to go, oh, they've said that, hang on, let me scroll through, let me find a really good rebuttal to that to really nail it. Well, you're not fully paying attention to the prospect. You're, distracted rather than just being natural and in the conversation. So if you could just have like Elon Musk's Neuralink implanted in your brain where it said, cool, they've said this, now I'm going to follow up with this, and it's perfectly scripted, that would be ideal. But we all know we're reading it off Word documents and Google Sheets, and it would be very stilted for us just to try and very quickly scroll through. Perfect. There's the rebuttal I needed. So when you're not reliant on that and you are a bit more emotionally intelligent and you understand why you're asking what you're asking, it's a lot easier just to have a natural back and forth conversation. And when I was sort of coaching one of the teams I coached the other day, I said to him, I was like, if you go out for Sunday lunch with your mum, your nan, or you're just speaking to anyone, do you need a script to have a conversation? Well, if you've got the interpersonal skills of a wasp, maybe, but most of us are just able to have a back and forth conversation.
Yeah.
So why can we not just apply the same thing there in a sales call? Well, for most people, it's because they don't have that deeper level understanding, and without the script, they fall to bits.
I think what they do is they find themselves in no man's land, meaning they've learnt somewhat of a script or a framework so that they now understand how a sales conversation should flow.
Mm-hmm.
And they're somewhere between that and being able to have a natural conversation. And it's the same principle that follows learning any skill, right? You are first unconsciously incompetent, and then you're consciously incompetent, meaning now you know what you don't know, whereas before you didn't know what you didn't know. Then you become consciously competent, so you can do it a little bit like driving a car. Right now I can drive, but I've kind of got to think about everything I'm doing. And then you become unconsciously competent, meaning, you know, if you've driven a car for any length of time, you just get in it, you go. Half the time you don't even remember the journey. And it's the same when you learn anything, and it's no different to learning a sales process, a script, a framework, whatever you want to call it. You've got to go through that transitionary period where it's really frustrating, where you're trying to learn, and all of a sudden, you know, you get to that second phase and you're like, oh my God, there's so much I don't know. But the idea is just like driving. If you put in enough reps, you put in enough practice, you can very quickly get yourself to the point where you are unconsciously competent and the words just roll off the tongue instead of having to think about every gear change and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. Every black belt has thrown the same kick 100,000 times in an empty gym at the bag. Every basketball player has shot, the same shot 100 million times. Every golf player, it's the exact same process.
Yeah.
The more that you do the reps, then the more it becomes sort of internal and you actually learn it. Sort of controversial, well, I don't know, maybe not controversial. I think one of the easiest ways to actually transition from script to just doing it naturally is to start as a setter rather than a closer. Because if you think you're trying to sort of learn this skill live with someone else looking at you over Zoom, it's a lot lower pressure being a setter with no one looking at you. You can stand up, you can walk around, you can talk to the ceiling while someone's in your ears, and then you can sort of slowly start putting that script away.
Yep.
Knowing that, okay, if I'm lost, all right, well, the script is only there, I can pick it up, I can try and understand why I got lost. Where do I go from here? I think most people should start as setters. Unless you have an extensive sales background, no one should really just be jumping on with a, £3, £4, £5, £10,000 or dollar program to be selling and winging it if you are 100% on a script. Do you agree?
I think if you're brand new, I think if you're brand spanking new, you've never worked in sales, then setting can be a good place to start because, I mean, for a start, in 99% of cases, you get a base salary. So you've got some security, right? Then commissions on top. And then whilst you're setting, you're learning basically the first portion of the script anyway, which is discovery. But also it gives you the ability to listen to the people on the team who are closing at a really high level, and you can kind of start learning through osmosis by doing that. So for a lot of people, I agree. If you've got, like you said, if you've got tons of sales background and, you've studied sales for any length of time, you can probably come in and rip it pretty quick. But if you're new, I think starting from setting is a good shout for most people.
Yeah. Let's talk about frameworks. We'll come to the framework we use because it was a game changer for me when you first taught it to me. What do we mean when we actually say framework? Because there's a lot of people that talk about frameworks, and again, people could just get confused at what does that actually mean? Are we talking about building rapport, connecting phase, situation? What do we actually mean when we say framework?
I think there's two ways I think about framework. Number one is the framework of the entire conversation, which is essentially discovery, transition to the pitch, and closing. And then there's a framework inside of each of those things with the framework inside of, shout out to Cole Gordon, because, he I don't know if he came up with this originally, but he certainly pioneered it and made it very popular, which is in discovery is pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, trust. And those essentially represent the 7 beliefs somebody needs to have in order to make a purchasing decision. It also represents the things that are most likely to cause them to not make a buying decision come the end of the call. Do you know what I mean? The hiccups that can delay it, you know. So for example, if you're talking about support, that's obviously, is there anybody else involved in the decision-making process? A husband, a wife, a business partner, whatever it may be. And if we haven't covered that off earlier, then it's likely to bite us on the backside come the end of the call. So that's how I think about framework inside of a sales conversation.
Yeah. And just to my point earlier about, 2 or 3 questions that could have big differences going from 10 to 15% to, 40 to 45 to 50, talking about the doubt framework, literally using the question, what has stopped you from doing anything about this in the past? And going down that line of conversation, shutting doors that we could have run into at the end had we not covered that.
Yep.
So I've tried XYZ. Okay, what results did you get from XYZ? I got good results. Okay, why are those good results not good enough to get you to where you are now? Or where you want to be? Because XYZ. Okay, we've handled that off of the back of one question and then just exploring it.
Yep.
The same question, I got bad results. Okay, why did you get bad results? Because it was missing XYZ, one-to-one support. It didn't give me what I needed. And now we've built a lot of ammunition. We know there might be a bit of skepticism because they've tried stuff in the past, and we can handle it all off the back of having a framework, one word, doubt, knowing to explore 1 or 2 questions, and then just tell me more.
Yep.
Tell me more. That's how easy it can be. There's so many people on TikTok and Instagram that make it look really hard and difficult. Like you've got to have these 1,000,001 fancy word tracks. And if you don't know these fancy word tracks and reframes, that you're never going to be able to sell anything. And it's like, well, dumb it down, strip it back. If I was to get on a sales call with someone and they're just hitting me with all of these reframes, we've talked about it before, time and place, just have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Ask good questions. Learn the script. Learn what good questions actually are, not just surface level questions. And then, build your understanding around it.
Yeah. I think the other thing that to tag onto that, the importance of conversational flexibility, because obviously there are trends that are created in any space, any niche. And it's no different to the kind of high ticket remote closing niche. Same thing. There are trends that occur. So if everybody all of a sudden is using the same script, just like if everybody all of a sudden uses the same ad, all of a sudden that ad starts to tank in terms of its effectiveness. Well, if people have been on, 2, 3, 4, 5 calls before, and you start using all the same questions, they're going to go, everybody's just asking me the same shit.
I heard this before. This sounds very similar. Someone asked me for £10,000 off the back of a few questions like this.
Yep.
Run away.
Yep. So one of the exercises we do with our students, obviously, is that we teach them conversational flexibility. Recognize very quickly how sophisticated is the person that you're speaking to. Right? Is it likely that they've been on a call before? Is it not likely? Are they a noob? Have they never looked at anything before? That will give you a little insight. And then if they're sophisticated, you can adapt those questions so that they don't sound like everything that person might have heard before. So conversational flexibility, I think, is really important inside of that framework.
Yeah. And coming back to the script, is it what you just said? There are so many questions, so many things that are recycled from different industries, different scripts. If people have heard it before, sales resistance is real. If in the first 60 seconds of the call, they hear a scripted frame that sounds very unnatural of, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at XYZ, see what sort of things that's done, not done, ultimately where you'd like to go. If it sounds like a good fit, we'll maybe walk through some next solutions. Yeah, I've heard that fucking the last 5 people I spoke to.
Yeah.
So many different things. Money aside, in objection handling. If I get to the end of a call, someone says to me, money aside, I know, because we're in sales, we're going down an objection handling loop.
Yeah.
I could probably map out the exact questions they're going to ask me. Now, prospects might not be that sophisticated, but they might have heard, okay, money aside, does XYZ make sense? Do you see yourself doing XYZ? Why do you see it? We're clever people, right? We're going to pattern recognise,
Yeah.
hang on, the guy that I spoke to 5 minutes ago, oh, but he's just asked me the same skydiving theory frame. That's weird.
Yeah.
Oh, heavy is the head that wears the... What the hell? Are these the same people? Like, am I just... Yeah.
Am I in the
Conversational
twilight zone
flexibility.
because I've heard all this shit before? Yeah. So
Yeah.
conversational flexibility is super important to be able to
Yeah.
change things up on the spot so it doesn't sound like what they've heard before.
Yeah. But that's the thing. If again, coming back to the main point, if you are relying on the script to try and get through that, just have a conversation. The way that I like to try and think about it is if a family member, a friend was a struggling alcoholic, they've got a pain that is real and needs to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
I would not need a script to understand that person and try and help them. That is the level of conversation that we want to be having as salespeople, closers, whatever you want to call it. Your only agenda is to help that person.
Correct.
Without needing to, have a question on a script to go, okay, where do I take this?
Yeah, exactly. It comes from good sales, in my opinion, comes from head and heart.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Thinking the right way and then from your heart wanting to do the right by that person. And sometimes what's right by that person is not being nice, it's being kind.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's easy to be nice. It's easy to say what they want to hear because they've probably got friends and family around them that tell them what they want to hear all the time. What's much more difficult is to have an honest conversation, being kind to them and telling them sometimes what they need to hear. Because sometimes what they need to hear is, dude, you need to get out of your own way because you're in it, which is why you've been stuck for the last 3 years.
Yeah, the really funny thing about that is there are so many people in life that are willing to have that sort of level of conversation with you that when you have it with a prospect, you can get, oh, I think you're being pushy. I think you're trying to sell me something. It's like, it's really sad when someone says that because it's like, I'm not trying to push anything on you that you haven't come here asking for.
Right.
The problem is you're at a decision point. The easiest thing in life to do is to default to fine, go back to what you were doing. I'm trying to hold you to a different standard. No one else does that. Everyone else is quite happy to let you cruise for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years of your life and achieve nothing. Here I am saying, here's an olive branch.
Yeah.
And you're going, oh, I feel pushed, I feel pressured. Now, it depends on your approach. If you've been, the Andy Elliott sort of high energy in their face sign a contract, then yeah, they might feel pushed and pressured. If you're asking them emotionally intelligent questions and holding up that mirror, then it's like, dude, come on. Let me help.
I had a prospect tell me that once. They said, I'm feeling like I'm being pressured. And I said, so what a lot of closers do is they lean out. They go, no, not at all. No pressure here. And then proceed to try and pressure them, right? It's like, dude, don't lean out, lean in. And so I said to this person, I said, yeah, I bet you do feel pressure. I said, and the reason is this. When you come into this program, I'm assuming that you want the coaches to hold you accountable, to hold your feet to the fire, to be there like a proper coach should be, and kind of kick your ass when is necessary in order for you to get the result. Or do you just want the coaches to leave you alone and let you do your own thing, even if they can see you going off the rails? The person was like, oh, no, obviously I want the coaches to hold me accountable. I'm like, right, well, that process starts right now. So if you feel pressure, that's on you. But my job is to make sure that you get a result. And you've told me 10 minutes ago, bouncing from thing to thing to thing, never pulling the trigger, dealing with a ton of procrastination has kept you stuck. So what kind of an asshole would I be if I allowed that to continue? I said, now I know that's not comfortable for you, but growth never comes from inside of your comfort zone. Would you agree with that? And they said, yeah. I said, so if you feel pressure, that's because you're potentially about to do something that can change the course of your life. And the reality is you're always going to feel that pressure. You could give it 24 hours, 24 weeks, 24 years. You're still going to feel that pressure when you come to do it. So I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't hold your feet to the fire right now. And they were like, fuck. And then what was crazy is their next question to me was, what do you think I should do? So then, because I've stepped into leadership and because I've just told them the truth, I've just been real with them, probably for one of the few times in their entire life that somebody's actually given them a home truth. told them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. They were like, what do you think I should do? Honestly, what do you think I should do? I said, you should do it. I said, you should just fucking do it. And they were like, okay, let's do it. Can we break the payment? I said, if we break the payment, you ready to go right now? Take my hand and let's do it. They went, yeah, I just need like a 2-pay. I said, okay, we'll do a 2-pay. And they were like, in. So I think it just comes from just be real with people. Being like, a lot of people say, oh, I just don't want to seem pushy. My response to that is, okay, so essentially you're being selfish because you're more worried about how you feel than you are about doing what's correct for that person. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I very much prescribe into burn the boat. We all know the chances of, if someone does get off of that first call and they don't close, the chances of us ever speaking to them again it's not next to none. It's like 0.01%. There are a very, very tiny amount of people. If they don't close in that first call, we are never going to speak to them again. So for fear of coming across pushy, like you said, most people will lean out and that internal urgency just, leans out with it. You give them breathing room, go, no, I'm not being pushy. All right, why don't you just go and think about it? Cool, done. You've just potentially screwed up the next 10 years of that person's life by letting them sit in indecision for even longer. Like you said, lean in. At the very worst, they're going to say yes, they're going to say no, they're going to say piss off.
100%.
Okay. Well, it's still a 50-50. They were going to say yes or no anyway. You've just added in a second way of saying no, which is piss off, and they put the phone down.
Yep.
Right?
But the flip side, the flip of that is I've got screenshots and messages and emails still on my laptop of people that said, I just want to say thanks because I'm a month into the program. I'm already getting great results. And if I'm being honest, if you hadn't held me accountable on that first call, I wouldn't have done it. So I just want to say thanks. And I've got countless amounts of those. Now, like that is obviously counterbalanced with the occasional piss off, right? But that's okay. That's that person's decision and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But for the people that I did bring in, for the people that did get great results, for the people that sent me an email or a text saying, look, I just want to say thanks, man, because I wouldn't have had the bollocks to do it if you hadn't been on that call with me. That is an amazing feeling, you know?
Yeah. And I had a similar one the other day, which is one of the call recordings that's in our academy is a woman who for 40, 50 years of her life basically hadn't had a good night's sleep. She was drinking 2 bottles of wine a night just to fall asleep, was pretty much ready to kill herself. And I got a message from her. She was 4 weeks inside of the program the other day, and I just got a random message at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a bad day saying, Josh, I just wanted to say thanks. And then just a 2-sentence sort of follow up to that. And I was just like, had to just unplug from everything because that was really a make or break call. If I hadn't been the person that I was and I helped her, and that could have had life-changing consequences for that person.
Yeah.
Just getting them sort of messages where it's like, just want to say thanks. You're just like, oh my God, hand on heart.
Dude, it brings a tear to the eye. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes, because when you're doing it for the right reason, I know there's plenty of people out there that will do it for the wrong reason and they get commission breath at the end of the call. And then they're like, they're just trying to wrangle them over the line because the only thing they can focus on is commission. Dude, prospects will smell that. They will smell that commission breath for sure.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But if you're doing it for the right reason, the fractional differences in your tonality will be heard and felt by that person. And that's where you get the thank you emails and the thank you text.
Yeah, but that particular call is one of the best examples that I can give anyone of ditching the script because there was no script at all.
Yeah.
It was literally 5 minutes into the conversation and I asked her the question because she came on and she said, oh, by the way, I'm the wrong targeting for this. I can't afford it. So this is probably a waste of time. 5 minutes in, got to the fact that she was spending £500 a month on alcohol just to fall asleep. And I asked her the question, okay, if you continue doing that for the next time frame, where does that put you? And she turned around to me and said, hopefully dead. what script is equipped to handle that?
There isn't one.
It doesn't exist.
That's where you've got to be a human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where you've got to understand the level of what that person has just said to you, your level of, what's the word? Your level of,
integrity.
Oh, my mind's gone blank. Your level
That's never
of.
happened before.
It's a good thing we're using this AI clipping software. Your level of.
I'm not clipping this. This is staying in.
Exactly. What is the bloody word?
I don't know.
Your level of
integrity, accountability.
Keep going.
Your level of
Responsibility. Jesus.
We got there.
Your level of responsibility in a situation like that, if someone turns around to you and gives you the answer, hopefully dead, that is like switching from salesperson to I'm potentially here to save this person's life.
Yep.
And I am doing that with the power of my intellect and the words that come out of my mouth. If you can do that, that is so powerful.
It's a great feeling.
It's a great feeling. And if you can do that, you are serious. You have learnt sales and psychology to some extent.
You've transcended the script.
You've transcended the script. Exactly. But if you are just reliant on the script and someone turns around to you and says, hopefully dead, where do you go from there? Do you look for the highlighted cost of inaction section and go, what do you do?
Mate, the reality is how many people would have done that? How many people would have done that? And they would have gone, well, what happens if you don't do anything? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's not what that person needs. That person needs an arm around the shoulder, and they need to be heard, and they need to be understood, and they need somebody to show up for them properly, like a human being. Go on, you'll find it.
Has that had an impact on you? That is the reality. Yeah. And that could have been, if you had someone who didn't have emotional intelligence who got on a call with that woman, you would never know. She could have walked out of her front door the next day and just walked in front of traffic. Yeah. I would never know.
No.
But I would know internally I didn't do everything for that person.
Love it.
Yeah.
On that bombshell.
Have we got anything else to add? Any other nuggets around? Well, let's just do a little bit more on paid out cost desire, or where they can at least find out about it.
Where they can find out about it?
Yeah. Plug what we do.
They can. Oh right. Oh, sorry. I get it. Well, I mean, they can follow you or I on social media. Closer Josh, or Business Coach Geoff on IG, or just my name, Geoff Ketterer, on TikTok or Facebook, or High Ticket Sales Academy on YouTube. Any one of those will do, and they can probably learn a ton just by going through each of our content.
Yeah, but the point of what we do is we make real sales training accessible without spending £10,000-15,000 or dollars. You can come in, you can train with us 4 days a week. However, that might be going up to a little bit more than that. That's to be decided. We're massive on community. We're massive on giving people the right information, not just creating script reading zombies and, £10,000 just to have to read a script.
We're creating salespeople, not scripted robots.
We are creating transformationalists. That rolls off the tongue nicely, doesn't it? Because we've talked about it before. What is sales? It's selling transformation. Whether you sell a marketing service, whether you sell weight loss, you are not selling a meal plan and accountability. You are not selling predictable lead flow. You are selling the future version of that person without those problems.
100%.
That's where you need emotional intelligence. That's where scripts fall short. Because if you don't understand what someone, the buying psychology, why they are actually trying to buy your thing.
Joshua, always a pleasure, mate.
Always a pleasure. Let's pick it up again soon. Cheers for now.